Okay, I think we're live. Yeah, there's a few person already here, so I think we're gonna start. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first EMA with Eric Napoli. We're so happy to have you here tonight, Eric. um,
Huge pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, for us too. The goal of this live session is to give you an insight into Eric's expertise and his story, his background, as well as his role within Kepler Digitals. So, over the next hour, we'll be discovering his experience as well as exploring his thoughts on aviation on the legal side. We're also lucky to have Yannick with us this evening. Hi, Yannick. We will be acting as a commentator, like since the few last EMAs that we did, and talk about Kepler's news.
Hello, Melody. Hello, Eric. Nice to be here as well.
So, first of all, we just encourage everyone to ask questions and engage with us during this session. This is all about interaction and sharing knowledge with you. So, feel free. There is also some questions already asked on X. There are going to be given today as well. There's quite a few. So, thank you for that. So, before diving into the discussion, we will ask our CEO Yannick if he has any news about Kepler Digitals these few days, these few weeks. Can you tell us a bit more about Kepler?
Yeah, and we had the previous summer was not so long ago because it was less than 2 weeks ago. So a little bit of evolution about what I said already. But let me update in the past 2 weeks what happened.
Yeah.
So we have two sides of Kepler: the industrial side and the crypto side of Kepler. I just remind that these two things are separated because the crypto side is a way to fund Kepler and also to make the community participate to our adventure. On this side, I'm going to start with. I'm not going to be reinventing all the challenges that today the crypto market is facing. So we face the same. Definitely, this is something that we address as well. We have increased the liquidity in some of the exchanges, and we monitor closely what we are doing. I'd say the Avia has been hit by the dip, but not more than anybody else. So I'm quite confident that it's going to recover as well as the crypto market is going to recover. I'm not overly concerned about this. I know this is the life of the crypto market, and I'm confident that when things are recovering, we will recover at the same time. Anyway, in order to finance Kepler Digital, we undertook some other things because we are a startup in the what we call the aviation valley, the aerospace valley in the southwest of France, very famous for this industry. So we are in contact with some officials to help Kepler startup to be funded as well. So this is going. So it will we will not only count on the crypto market with this. So on this side, equal as last time, we are going to recover because I do trust that this crypto market will recover. And it will be brilliant for Kepler. On the industrial side, which is more my specialty, as you can imagine, having lived 30 years nearly in aviation. So we are progressing. So the focus today is to put in practice the two contracts that we have already signed. So I just remind everybody that we have a contract for the tokenization of certificates, which is development is ongoing with Julien and François, part of the team, and with Kush. And we have also another contract with a drone company named Dragonfly Pad, and this is also ongoing. After the first estimation for the implementation of these two are optimistically May, pessimistically end of June. But basically, we are putting the foundations for any future development all that based on avalanche. So this is progressing well with a lot of, let's say, power, brain power. When you know the background of these guys, you know that they are not joking when they develop. So this is something which is going well. And we were looking for a third MVP, and we had early discussion with an American company. I'm keeping the name secret for the time being, but this company will, if you want, will make the case of the parts of the aircraft parts a reality when we make this MVP. I have good confidence. We had the first call this week with the high-level decision maker, and we have another one next week showing that they are looking for this. The rest of the industry in aerospace is going blockchain. I said that last time, but there is not the only one. People would say, but don't you are you scared of competition? Not, on the contrary, I want competition because the cake is so huge. When I say, example, in 2024 we transported 9.5 billion passenger, and it will double in the next 20 years. So we need a lot of people adopting blockchain all around. We are one of the pioneers, and I encourage other people to join us. This is happening, so I'm confident that on the industry side it will go. I'm resuming the Middle East discussion next week for reasons that maybe in a month I can explain. It had stalled, and let's not forget that at the moment this is Ramadan, so every activity in this piece of the world is a little bit slower than expected. So, but here the discussions are on. Marketing activity, we are here. And the last one I want to say, maybe at some point, more investors will join Kepler. So actually we are attracting interest, which is good news. So for the people who are investing in Avia, I know that I say that, I repeat that, be patient. So the cycle of aviation is different than the cycle in crypto. However, when aviation plays, it plays strong. And the fundamentals of aviation are huge. Why? Because people are traveling. People will continue to travel. The worldwide population is increasing. A new aviation will superpose the existing aviation, and the middle class is now more wealthy to be able to travel. So all that to say that everything which is addressing aviation in blockchain will have a chance to be successful. And I trust that Kepler will be part of the winners in that space. So all that to say, this is about Kepler. So you see me quiet and I would say peaceful because I believe in that project, and this project will be a success.
Yeah, it will. Well, thank you very much for these updates, Yannick. And of course, what all Yannick says about what's going to happen in May, in June, everything will be on our social media. Me and the team and everyone will be updating you on social media. So remember to follow our X account and our LinkedIn accounts. So now I think we're gonna ask some questions to our guest. Eric, you ready for the questions?
I hope so.
Well, we're going to start with the beginning. So, can you just share a little bit about your story before your professional story? Where did you come from? How did you get interested in the aviation and travel industry? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So, my name is Eric Napoli. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., or the Washington, D.C. area. I went to university. Actually, I got a degree in philosophy because I can't do math. And then, there's no work in philosophy, so I went to law school, which is what philosophy majors do in the U.S. I then worked for a law firm in D.C., and I specialized in something very, very, very special, unique, Clean Water Act, nutrient pollution in man-made water bodies, very, very specific got to a point I was like, this can't, like, my life can't just be this. So I took a sabbatical and moved to Spain, where I've been now for 25 years.
Wow.
And in Spain, I worked for IE Business School for a number of years, running an MBA program after I did an MBA there. I worked for startups as a lawyer.
Okay.
And then I moved at one point to Amadeus, where
Hmm.
I've met Yannick. I've known Yannick now for probably 15 years. Um,
Wow.
as a lawyer, running, pretty much doing everything that wasn't the core business. So things like airport, things like hotel, rail, et cetera. And towards the end, with really a focus on innovation and on airport. Um, and then from there, I moved to a scale up called AirHelp,
Hmm.
where I currently am. I'm the chief legal officer of AirHelp, and we're the global leader in helping passengers obtain compensation from airlines when there's a disruption. But not just getting passengers compensation, we also help airlines manage the disruption, as well as OTAs. So yeah, I've been in travel industry for maybe 20 years. And why travel? Why stick in travel? I mean, one, I was lucky that Amadeus is in Madrid, and really is kind of, one thing I think people don't know in Europe is that the global leader in kind of in travel tech is a European company. Luckily, that company has, its headquarters in the city I was living, so I was able to go to the Google of travel tech, you can say. And so I worked there. But I'm from the U.S. My wife is from another country. We live in Spain. The only way I can live in Europe is, because of travel, right? If it weren't for travel, there's
Yeah.
no way I could be able to go back and see my family. I need to see my family, at least twice a year. I couldn't marry a woman who's not from Spain and live in Spain unless we could be going to see my in-laws all the time, right? And so travel is absolutely essential to my life, like nothing else would. In fact,
Yeah.
I was living in Madrid. My wife was living in Paris. We were actually married, traveling back and forth. I would leave the office at 5 o'clock on Friday, and I'd be at her doorstep at 11 o'clock at night. I had everything, how long it took me to walk to the metro, to take the metro, to get to the airport. I could do Charles de Gaulle to the train station with my eyes shut after a year of going every other weekend. So travel, like, nothing would make sense without travel. Um, if you're like me and you're from the U.S., people don't live where they grew up. That's just very American. That the mobility in American
Yeah.
society is amazing. You go to study far away, and then when you get a job, you go wherever the best job is. So Americans are everywhere. And if you actually look in the U.S., the biggest travel day in the U.S. is the day before Thanksgiving, because Americans, they spend Thanksgiving with their parents, with their the bigger family, right? And so it's you have to travel. It's the worst travel day of the year because of so much congestion. And what I've noticed in the 25 years I've lived in Europe is that Europeans have become like Americans in this sense, is that Europeans are now taking jobs outside of their home country, and
Mm.
European air traffic is becoming like US. So you have just constant movement back and forth for business meetings, for people going home on the weekend, something that is a very much an American phenomena that didn't
Yeah.
happen in Europe either. And this happened. So travel is just, it's our life, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, so
You're
yeah,
right
sorry,
about.
I'm
I'm the same. My family's in England, so I do travel a lot, twice a year to go and see them. So it is a important part of yeah.
yeah.
Just
In
a
fact,
quick
I worked.
question.
Yeah.
You told about you working at Amadeus, and that's how you met Yannick. Just if it's if you cannot answer, it's okay. But how did you make Yannick, and in what circumstances? I mean,
I don't remember well, actually, Yannick, I think we were trying to put Qt into the cloud at the very beginning. And we were
okay.
kind of going back and forth, trying to come up with, the framework of how, from a kind of me from a contractual standpoint, like, how do we
Yeah.
structure, I think we were trying to go to a third party that would virtualize it. And so it was a company in France. So Yannick and I were going back and forth to try to put this together.
So
And
you like when you
then,
were in exactly the same team, like in the same.
Well, so I was giving legal support to his team,
Oh,
and
okay. I
yeah,
see. Yeah.
and then it became a point where then I was in charge of all of the legal support for the airport IT business. And what's funny is that so I just had a fantastic team of lawyers. But I knew if somebody said that there was a risk that we shouldn't assume, I knew that within 2 minutes, Yannick would call me up and walk me through
Uh,
why, you know, what the risk really was and how do we look at this risk, is it a real risk or not, what could actually happen that would go wrong and this stuff. But I always knew right away Yannick
yeah,
would be the first one to call, and within 5 minutes him and I would have a solution. I always knew.
yeah. So maybe a comment on my side. So in a big corporation like Amadeus is 20,000 people. So this is a,
Yeah.
a yearly income of more than 6 billion euros. But inside is this big structure. They give the chance to some types of startups. So basically,
Hmm.
when I started Airport IT from a white page, I needed adventurers to come with me to be able to do things that didn't exist before. And honestly, the Eric was so I would say so bright in inventing things that didn't exist before in Amadeus, a big operation. So actually, we we got together. We understood together each other from day one, because I always ask Eric the impossible, and he was able to make the impossible possible. So when he had to create the first contracts in an area that Amadeus didn't know before, and he had advised how to address a new market which was already taken over the past 30 years by our competitors. So it was a lot of persistence, resilience, moments of doubts, but no give up, never give up mindset. So basically, we made it through. So it took us at least 4 or 5 years before we signed a fair contract, but we did it, and now this is. If we take the overall positioning, the corporate, so this area of Amadeus now is the number 2 in the world, and in the first contract that Eric built, we are number 1 in the world. We came from 0 customers to 130 customers in a space of 5 years. So
Wow.
basically, the fact to have Eric was he was a different lawyer. He's not the current ones that we are used to, always in something. But so that's why for Kepler it's so important to have this type of personality,
And that's why
because
I was just gonna ask a question to both of you. Just how did you, Yannick, talk to Eric about your project when you first started thinking about Kepler, and how did Eric like answered you? What did he say?
he said, "Oh no, not another time." No, not at all. On the contrary, he was curious. He said, "Okay, so what is it going?" And but I think Eric, I don't know, but you were missing this type of adventure in a way.
No, what happened? I mean, of course, my day-to-day job as as chief legal officer, it's very similar to kind of what we were doing at Amadeus in our airport business. But I think, like everyone else, I was on LinkedIn and I'd seen that Yannick had, put this together. I remember, we can talk about this a little bit later, but I remember, looking at kind of doing the first couple prototype blockchain stuff at Amadeus and thinking, oh, wow, the things that we had done in the past, they weren't so attractive in blockchain, and seeing that, okay, well, if Yannick's done this, wow, this is really interesting. And then seeing the other people that had joined, it was, John Jarrell we just had such a wonderful team in Amadeus and Airport IT. And when I saw these people come, I was like, oh, I sent Yannick a message and I said, hey, look, if you need anything from me, if you want me to look at something, if you want my input, I'll do whatever you guys need. These are, people I consider my friends. And
Oh.
And it was kind of like, okay, we're bringing the band back together, right? We're bringing the, it's like the Rolling Stones are going for one more tour. So, so that was really, and my idea, to be on the advisory board is really, if I can, help out whatever I can, if I can give some input. And to be honest, just to be in the room as these guys are cooking up really cool stuff,
No.
I think it's just fascinating.
And at this time, did you know about blockchain adoption and in aviation, or did you just discover it?
So probably, I don't know, 2017, 2018, in when I was still at Amadeus, there were a couple of different kind of use cases that were being looked at
Okay.
in blockchain. And it's kind of funny at the time, I was trying to get my head around, okay, people were talking about blockchain, what is it, et cetera. And I was close to the corporate strategy people as well who were looking at it. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what is blockchain? Let me understand conceptually. And I think it was around Christmas time. This is kind of a funny story. And I was putting my kid to bed, and I always sang like Christmas songs to my kid. And I think I was singing, like Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list. He's checking it twice, right? He's going to find out who's naughty and nice. And I thought, well, you know what, you could do is, parents could put, whether kids are good or bad onto a blockchain, right? And, by the end of the year, you'd have this kind of, people could be putting this in here, and Santa Claus at the end of the year could check the blockchain and, be able to see, and you could have a smart contract. If you had more, nice than naughties, then the automatic, response would be the kids get their gifts. And, maybe it could integrate with like, Amazon or something, and that gift could go straight out to the kid, right? And so that was kind of my joke, and I wrote an article about it, internal blog about it in Amadeus. And then suddenly, I think I was asked to like attend conferences and be the spokesperson on blockchain. But no, we had looked at a couple of different use cases, and I had spoken at South Summit about blockchain as well, and we looked at use cases. One for baggage tracking. I don't know, for loyalty cards. I can't remember for interlining or not. I can't remember what they were. Maybe interlining was artificial intelligence, but a couple of different use cases. And at the time, the problem was, for at least for Amadeus, Amadeus they process, I don't know how many millions of transactions a second. And if you're going back, 8 years or so, the transaction time just wasn't quick enough for needs. And then there are other issues that we can talk about in a bit about, one thing that Yannick said before that's very encouraging is now blockchain is already in aviation. But one of the problems is really scaling, is can you get enough people? Because what you need lots of data points. So for example, if you're talking about baggage tracking, you need every data point to be entering information in document. So you need kind of cooperation by lots of different players. And so those were the things that had slowed it down at the time. But it was something at the time that I was very, engaged in talking about. Traveler ID as well. So that's my background.
Okay. So my next question is talking about blockchain. For you now today, what are the most significant legal challenge that the blockchain and the aviation industry faces today, like now?
Okay, so a couple different ways to answer that. So a big way, I would say, like the first challenge, I don't see. So I look at blockchain as a piece of a we're trying to we need to find use cases, right? Every company has products, and you have products that have different technologies behind them. And blockchain is a very interesting technology to solve certain issues in aviation, right? We can talk a little bit about those and why those are important. But the first thing for me, any kind of new product, anything you want to roll out, the issues are really commercial. So not so much, I wouldn't say there's something unique about blockchain. Like how do we get critical mass? How do we get all the data points that are out there? I mean, one of the biggest problems in aviation is that there's so much data out there. And if the different players, the different stakeholders could share that data, because lots of stakeholders are very, they're very protective of their data. Like an airline doesn't want anybody know that they have 2 empty seats on the plane. But if the
Yeah.
airline could tell somebody that information, 3 hours before, that would solve huge amounts of problems in terms of congestion in an airport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all these different players out there. And if we can get these different players to understand the importance of sharing data early, right, then we can solve so many problems. So one of the issues is, how do we get different players to share their data, right? How do we
Yeah.
implement? So all the kind of economies and scale, and that's kind of, the first issue for me always is, okay, how do we solve the business issues?
And what
And
is this
then
solution for you? Like to make all these people work together? How do you think we should do?
well, I mean, um, so then I'll take another step. So right now, for example, one of the things I'm doing a lot at AirHelp, so well, another step back. So one of the reasons I really love travel, I really love travel tech, is
Mm-hmm.
because I have to travel, as I said, and the travel experience is horrible, right? And most of the travel experience that's horrible happens in the airport, right? We get to the airport, the lines are incredibly long. There's so much stress because there's so much in travel that's outside of our control, and things that we can't control make us really stressed, right?
Yeah.
And so this is what I loved about airport IT, was that we could do things that can improve that. And in AirHelp, what I try to do is I try to find ways to at least address the issue of disruption. And at least if a passenger understands, okay, if the airline screws up and I have a long delay, at least I'm going to get something, right? And so one thing we talk about a lot is consumer confidence. So how do we get people, because like we said, everybody wants to travel and people want to travel more, but they're stressed. How do we make sure that people are confident in the travel experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see that there were a couple of accidents recently in the U.S. There was a high-profile accident in Washington D.C., which is the
Yeah.
city where I'm from. And in fact, I was just flying into that airport a week before, and when I was a little kid at that airport, there was an accident. And every time I take off and land in that airport, I get the
Yeah.
jitters, right?
Get
And
yeah. You get
so what
scared.
I read, yeah, and so what I read yesterday or the day before is, I think it was Delta and a few of the U.S. airlines have said that they're starting to feel a decline in ticket sales because of this drop in consumer confidence, right? Of course, aviation continues to be incredibly safe, right? But still, psychologically, and I think as us as consumers, as we kind of express our lack of confidence and we demand better experience, then the players in the market are definitely coming around. And I know that Yannick, in your experience talking to airports and airlines, I mean, they want to give a better experience. And so they're starting already to come around. And if they're already using blockchain and they're already talking to us at AirHelp, they know that this is a question. So it's really, now besides that is have to be able to have prototypes and to be able to demonstrate them that, to them that we're able to, that there is a product out there that can address these issues. So that's kind of the commercial kind of question, and really the use case. And I believe, where blockchain is very much able to address is all these issues of confidence in almost every level of the value chain and the supply chain in the sector. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I know I have to answer the legal question, but
No, but
Yannick.
adding to that, so first of all, blockchain, two major features that are so useful for aviation and not yet used widely: traceability and combat counterfeiting in all aspects. I'm not only talking about aircraft parts. So basically, if you can make sure that all these things are disappearing from the scene, it will give better confidence in the future. I just remind what I said. Statistically, we are going to have not statistically, we are going to have double passenger in the next 20 years. So if we don't do anything better compared to now, we will have double number of accidents. So I want to avoid that, and blockchain can contribute to that. So this is so important that we try. We have now at the end of 2024. I repeat what I said last time. The ESA, which is the European equivalent to FAA in the US, is promoting blockchain now. So this is something that they encourage every actors to adopt. You've got Air France. In Air France industry, for the traceability of their parts, they use a blockchain named SkyThread. You've got IATA, who starts to do something about this, and you have got white paper of all actors. So there is something here that we need to tackle, and this is what we try to do. Basically, at the end of the day, if Kepler contributes to safer aviation, more traceable aviation, and embracing, and not to forget, the new aviation, which is coming on top of what I said before, the UN, urban air mobility, starting from scratch with the right habits, thanks to blockchain. I think our mission, it looks like a big word, but we talk about the business opportunity. I'm more talking about a societal duty. We have a societal duty to make aviation still the dream of the future generation. So we are here. So the old generation is trying to contribute here with our knowledge and our network, and the new generation like yours, Melody, to help us with all the details about blockchains technically.
Yeah, well, talking about the young generation, my little brother, he wants to be a pilot since he's like really little. And I tried to explain Kepler to my little brother, and he thought it was a great idea. Like it was hard to explain to him, but the fact that he maybe more secured in the airplane, he thought it was a good idea. So I think it's gonna please the young generation. And we all hope so. I think Eric, you have to finish your question.
So yeah, no, and yeah, I can go on and on about this. Of aviation is a public good and all of these things, and as we rely on it, right? So definitely, and to be able to scale, we need safer, and the technology's there, right? It's a question of investment. So, anyways, so right now there are a number of kind of issues that aren't necessarily unique to blockchain that we're seeing with all technologies, and this is the same for AI as well. So I would say like one is security. So and that's more of a technical question, a legal question, but there's the issue of how do we make our system secure because of hacking, fraud, all these things. And then another one would be so privacy. And so privacy, again, when you put something, when you're, if we look at AI and machine, all this type of thing, personal information can be taken to be able to derive new information, right? And so that's an issue that's also in AI, and we're seeing this a lot. And then we're also seeing the issue of intellectual property rights. So if I use kind of AI to be able to do coding, at what point do I know that code is actually mine, not someone else's? Now, of course, and actually, who is the actual author of it if it's AI? So I look a lot now where when
you studied philosophy, so it's a question you can you can answer.
Exactly. It's been a long time, but no, I mean, I look at this a lot now when we develop softwares. We always get kind of the auditors coming in and saying like, but you haven't used AI tools to develop this, right? Because later if somebody does the due diligence, do you actually own this or not? Are you using PII, so personally identifiable information, in order to make decisions of your company, right? So blockchain has similar, potentially has similar issues in terms of, who is the owner of certain intellectual property rights? What do you do with, what happens with PII, so with personal information that's stored in the chain, and all these things. They're things that are, basically a question ultimately for society and how we want to value the, personal information, what should or should not be public. But they're all things that are actually easily addressable, in the current kind of state of affairs. I always say, like, when somebody comes to me and asks me like, hey, Eric, can we do this with personal information? Right? Because, the developers always like, oh, this is great, right? They never think about, oh, well, actually, I'm using PII to do something. I always say, like, how would you feel if this is what happened with your information? Would you go, ooh? Would you think if this is a problem, lots of kind of social media companies have, is like, if your users are young and they want to be cool, if you're using their information for this purpose, will they think that's cool, or they'd be like, oh, this is creepy? So the first thing you always have to do is ask yourself, is this creepy, right? And so, and that's kind of the creepy test. But then, when it comes to blockchain, you have to ask yourself, do I actually have to put the personal information, the actual personal information on the chain or not, right? On the public chain. I can keep it elsewhere, right? And then if I am going to put it in the chain, has the person who's given me that information given me their consent to do so? And so if we're talking about, credentials in aviation, I have to upload my credentials. People know if I want to work in the aviation sector, I have to do this. It becomes a standard of practice. Just like you can go online and you can check that I'm a lawyer. Who you can see my certification is in the Bar Association of New York or what have you. So that's not necessarily a problem. There was an issue, potential issue of the right to be forgotten, but even your right to be forgotten, is limited, at least in terms of legitimate use of these things. So there are ways to handle the privacy question. There's another kind of issue for blockchain in general, and this is kind of one use case, and this is kind of the case of cryptocurrencies, which is, at what point does fundraising fall under kind of securities regulations, right? And this is really kind of like a bigger question for governments at some point to say, and there's reasons why it should, and there's reasons why maybe it shouldn't. But that's another question that will arise, arises some places. I know in the U.S., now with the current administration, they're probably going to shy away from making it a security. But anyways, that's another issue to be addressed and to think of. But that's one use case, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Eric. I think we are nearly arrived to 40 minutes, and there's quite a lot of questions. So I'll start with the questions that has been asked on X first, and then we'll do the second questions in the comments. So one of the first question is from Crypto Digen. What do you think is the most significant legal barrier to widespread adoption of blockchain in aviation? So I think you just answered it, but like, what is the most important one?
So again, I would take a step back from legal. I would say the most important adoption is really, it's really about adoption. It's really about, it's not legal issues are not the primary barrier to being able to scale in this business, right? I mean, this is about, for me, from a legal standpoint, the first thing I'm looking at is, Yannick says, okay, we have somebody who's interested. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how do we set up this transaction? What is it of value we can give? Actually, who is, if we have a chain, who is supporting and maintaining that chain? What is it that I'm doing on this chain for these players? How is it that I'm going to be, what is my revenue stream? And then how do I articulate that? Those are for me, that's the first question. Later, when we talk about, the things, again, that we think about big would be privacy, something like privacy, but this is, there's solutions around it, right? What do you put, what do you keep on the chain? What do you keep out of the chain, right?
Okay. There is another question. I think that one is more like from Yannick. So it's a question from Cage. How does Kepler Digitals plans to protect user privacy and comply with data protection laws when using Avia for utility in the aviation industry?
Okay, so it's a long question. I would have said this is more for Eric, but I can answer for this one. So basically, in blockchain, you don't have, as you said, the data privacy for people. You can put it on blockchain, but you can also encrypt it. You've got additional layers that you can use. There is one that, example, in the defense area that we call Zama, which is able to encrypt layers on top, so in order not to be displayed and used. So this is what some technical solutions can happen, or you can store it somewhere else to ensure data privacy when it's needed. Yeah. So this is not, and I would say with Eric, we have been confronted to that question all our life because Amadeus is about that. So we have, if you want, the legal ways to do that. We have also in blockchain the technical ways to do that, which is even better than central systems that we have today existing. So I am even if my answer is not precise, but we can keep secret a certain number, certain elements on the blockchain if we want to. Yeah. So it's a public ledger, but we can keep some pieces non-public. Maybe I want to answer the resistance to adopt blockchain. For me, the main resistance is a matter of generation. It's a resistance to change. It's aviation has not been used to be using blockchain, and they managed to get their business without blockchain before. But since now we are solving some new use cases that we were mentioning at the beginning, the adoption will come for two reasons: because we are solving issues that are not solved by other means, and second, because by the change of generations will push people who are using blockchain from their studies, I would say, they will become the future CTOs, the future CIOs, and blockchain will be natural. It's like, I don't know, saying, do you want to use a tablet on an iPhone? So 20 years ago, no, I don't want to use that. I want my PC. Yeah, it's a natural thing. So it will come. I have absolutely no doubt that it will come. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just to give you an example, every RFP. So, if you want to have a contract with an airport, most airports are public entities, right? And you have to go through a very strict public procurement process. And the same thing happens with systems, other kind of systems operating in airports and in aviation. And all of the systems, all of these things 10 years ago were all written for descriptions of what they wanted, all written for outdated services. None of them were written for cloud-based services. And we had to go in and revolutionize that. And it took a long time. Yeah. And obviously, I'm not here definitely to promote the current administration in the US, and there's lots of things people may like or may not like. But I think one thing, Elon Musk, he's come in and he's kind of shocked probably when he looks at the current state of kind of technology of how we're doing certain types of air traffic issues, right? And I don't, necessarily think that he has a solution. But what is interesting is with these kind of incidents, is that suddenly people will stop and say, well, you know what, maybe we need to take a fresh look. And so we're in a moment where there's a fresh look being taken, and I think that's very important. And the tools out there, between AI and blockchain, I think those are things that are very exciting.
Thanks, Eric. So the next question is, I think, for you. So the next question is from Samurai John. How can blockchain technology help airlines minimize compensation payouts to customers due to service disruptions?
How can they minimize? So I think probably what they can minimize the cost. So the whole conversation, pretty long conversation about how the ecosystem of paying compensation works. But one of the biggest issues you have is that consumers don't have access to reliable information about why a disruption occurred, right? Because the way most compensation laws work is that if the flight was disrupted, say in Europe, more than 3 hours, and the cause is something that's within the reasonable control of the airline has to pay compensation. And passengers, they just don't know why their flight was delayed, and they probably don't know that they have a right to this either. So what we do is we have kind of data systems that look at all this. So if you could put kind of the information onto a blockchain, and you could automatically figure out what somebody could go right away and see this, then that would be a big
nice transparency.
A big help. Yeah, transparency, right? I mean, one of the big issues is transparency. That's what my company does. We basically work kind of in transparency. So
okay, thanks. I think we're gonna do 2 or 3 more questions, and then after we'll pass on the comment ones. So I think that one is more for Yannick. As one of Kepler's MVP with MB Aviation, to integrate blockchain into the certification of aviation training processes, are there any concerns regarding privacy laws, given that personal information could be recorded on the blockchain? Oh, I think we already answered this question with Eric, but if one of you can answer.
No, I think this is important that we manage the way that how we can disclose or not the personal information. But I just remind what is the purpose of that. The purpose of that is to make sure that somebody who is touching an aircraft is allowed to touch the aircraft, having the right training, making sure the refresher of this training is done. So in order for the rest of the passenger on board, if we need to disclose somebody's refresher training, and this is requested by law, we will have to. But nevertheless, blockchain it's not mandatory we do that. We can just make sure that this is according to law. But the important thing is to make sure that people who are working around an aircraft are allowed to work around that aircraft. Today, you have fake diplomas, fake lawyers, excuse me, Eric, fake doctors, fake Yannicks. and you need to make sure that people touching an aircraft making a pushback of a 747 with 400 people on board are allowed to do that. So this is so important for the security of everybody.
Right. So, and then yeah, and if I may, I would say also kind of the importance. We talk about confidence and transparency, and one of the important things is, you use kind of regulation and privacy protection to your advantage. I mean, what we'd want to do when we design the interaction with data is to make sure, one, the data is reliable, so people know the blockchain is reliable, but also the people who are sharing their data also know exactly what is, what kind of PII is being included and what's not, and for what purpose. And so that gives huge amounts of confidence. So, we're putting in just the minimal information that's necessary to serve the purposes of the blockchain, and keeping out what doesn't need to be out, and giving access to the chain also to only the people who need to do it. And once you do that, you're not just meeting kind of GDPR, for example, but you're also making your product more attractive to all the stakeholders.
Exactly. GDPR is important. Blockchain will respect GDPR. Huh? So okay. So this is.
I just have a question my side before answering the comments ones. I just thought of that, but for you, Eric and Yannick, what country is the most open to adopt blockchain as quickly as they can? Like, which one you think is going to adopt blockchain first in the aviation industry?
I have my own feeling, my own perspective. I think the people look at the population owning cryptocurrency. Yeah. Okay. You've got some specific countries where you have more adoption of cryptocurrency because basically they already believe in blockchain by having their asset on a blockchain. So I think this one will be the first ones.
But do they have the technology to make it happen?
Well, so that's why we are here. So basically, it's like the tech company, we are not only working for the country we are based on. Thanks God. So we here. This is why. And one of the questions was about: is there what about the internationalization of the technology? In aviation, there is things which are very happily happening. You've got several supranational entities. Example, you've got ICAO, yeah. So the Civil Aviation Organization, the worldwide, which is an extension of the United Nations. You've got IATA, you've got ACI, you've got supranational regulations which are allowing already travel tech to work. So basically, we are going to use the same regulations. There is nothing different in blockchain than the one which are already existing have been existing over the past 80 years. Yeah. 80. Yeah. So you need to be compliant with this, and it allows to work in every country in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Yannick. So now let's pass to the common questions. So that's the first one for Eric, as the chief legal officer of Arab. You've been helping passengers secure compensation for flights issues for years. So that's what you said. Would you say your work aligns with Kepler's vision of for the aviation industry? And how do you see both efforts complementing each other?
Okay, yeah, so it's air help. So there is no kind of business relationship with the two groups, right? So they're completely separate. I'm not, you know, I'm not sharing information, etc. I mean, I think definitely that there's two things that are common. So one is Yannick and I both share kind of very much a vision about travel experience. So we're both kind of bred on this concept of we want to improve travel experience. And the reason I went to AirHelp was because also I kind of a vision of traveler experience. I think we both understand, as I've said, the importance of travel and the idea of improving the travel experience by making things more, whether it's reliability or transparency, confidence, etc. So I think that's right. And I think that's the whole purpose of travel tech in general, is to try to improve uh, improve travel. So I'd say that's the combination.
Okay.
And sorry, and the point on compensation is really about confidence. Is knowing that I rely on this airline, and if I get screwed, I'm not left hanging, right? Something will be done for me, right? So.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Eric. So the next question is aviation operates across multiple jurisdictions. How does Kepler plans to navigate international laws when implementing blockchain solutions? That's what we just talked before.
No, I answered that question. Actually, we are not going to be getting aside what is the international laws concerning aviation, and thankfully, aviation is already very open to multinational. Aviation has to work internationally. If not, you would have only domestic flight within one country. So all the countries had to find ways to have laws which are allowing tech companies to make the right system to do so. So I have absolutely no concern, and we are going to be like Amadeus, like AirHelp, like any other tech company working aviation using the same laws. So I mentioned already, ICAO is the overarching one, and you've got a lot of other organization taking care of that. EASA is one of them, FAA is another one, GCAA in the Middle East is a third one. So we can list them all, and they all speak together. Eurocontrol is another one. So we could spend 1 hour describing what aviation jurisdiction is about, but blockchain is going to be compliant with this.
Yeah.
Right. I've just add, there's, aviation by nature is international. So, when I used to work in rail, I mean, one of the big problems with rolling out kind of rail IT solutions is that rail is incredibly domestic, and each railway is like a totally different world. And it was very hard to build kind of solutions that, IT services that could work commonly across different ones. But there's so much standardization in airlines just because of this, and airlines have to work together through interlining or code sharing or whatever. And so really what we're talking about is building specific use cases that operate with other technologies to work. So I don't think there's so much of an international legal issue as really how do we work together with different players. And in aviation, already by nature, it has to do that, right? There's so many, like to get a plane up in the air, there's so many different players all interacting at the same time, crossing, different skies, all this stuff.
Yeah. And we have one last questions. It's more general about Kepler Digitals. Does Kepler has plans to secure more partnerships as Q2 2025?
Well, of course, we have plans. Now we need to execute the plans. So what I said, we have a third one. We have two other ones that we are working on. One is in the Middle East, I was mentioning before. Another one is in the US. I keep also the name until I can disclose the name. This is not the only one because, as I said, I don't know if I said that during the last summer, but we are going to be part of the Aerospace Valley, which is well known in the southwest of France, between Bordeaux and Toulouse. You know, Toulouse is the nest of Airbus. So there is a whole ecosystem of networking allowing access to this industry. Apart from the network that we have already, as you can notice, we are old timers, so we have already our network. You can see that on LinkedIn, the number of links that we have. Last time we were with Boost Aerospace, we had a JV of 4 big names in aviation. So yes, more partnership will come. But in order to get them, I want to show them MVPs in action, because it's good to have partnership, but we need to demo what we can do in partnerships for them to be attracted by what we do, and not to sell only a dream, concrete things that works. And that's why the first 2 MVPs are so important to implement first, and then the rest of the partnership will come. So no doubt that it will come, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think we're arriving at the end of the time. So I think it's a wrap for this AMA with Eric and Yannick tonight. A huge thank you to you too, to Eric, for being here and sharing your story and your vision and for laughing with us. And thanks also to Yannick for your comments and for your insights. And of course, to everyone who joined us today. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out via our social media channels. We'll let you know. We'll answer you on the Telegram group. There is absolutely no problem. So we will also transcript the CMA and make it a blog article. So if you want to catch up, you can. There is absolutely no problem with the time zones. So yeah, thank you very much, Yannick. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the advisory board and to be helping you guys in this adventure.
It was a pleasure for us as well. And yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. See you soon.